But truly reusable shopping bags, here I'll turn to my visual aids, that we're all familiar with, that are thicker than the traditional, plastic bag that we're getting at the supermarket, and can be reused hundreds of times, are available for $1 to $3. And there are special bags for pet waste, for dog waste. This issue seems to come up quite a bit somehow when these bans are discussed. This is a package of bags just for dogs. They're made out of an innovative bioplastic that's made out of plants, not natural gas and oil. So these are the kinds of things that suddenly emerge when we start to think about this issue. And this is what hundreds of communities across the country have done, and we hope Bridgewater will join that group. This can be a somewhat technical topic, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have about constructing such laws, the impacts, and so forth. Thank you very much.
Okay. So we'll certainly open up to the council for any questions. Anyway, Mr. Wood.
Thank you. When we looked at the bag ordinance before, there was an exclusion over a particular thickness bag, and I don't remember if it was extremely thin or extremely thick, but there was in the ordinance itself, and I don't have it in front of me, so
it's
I can't quote
2.5 mils for the draft in Bridgewater.
So I was told under one of the discussions that one of the businesses already complied with that portion of the law. So how does that affect? So if the town were to pass an ordinance with that exclusion in it, and everybody just moves to that 2.5 mil, how does that affect what you're trying to do?
Excellent question, Councilor Wood. I actually would question whether or not any business is already compliant with 2.5 mils. There are, reaching in my bag of tricks here, bags that are 2.25 mils, and I'm happy to pass this around if that's of interest, which is a quarter of a mil less than 2.5. And in some communities, they have passed that as their minimum thickness, and the Sierra Club does not recommend 2.25 mils as a thickness, and in fact recommends 3 or 4 mils. So you could and perhaps should go higher in Bridgewater, but there are no communities that I know of where 2.5 mil bags are available. So this is 2.25, just to get a feel for it. And if you add I could pass around a traditional shopping bag, if you added that thickness to this thickness, you get 2.5 or 3. So no, we don't, Councilor Wood, we don't want to encourage thicker bags. We're hoping that this discussion and the education that's being done by the community members here in Bridgewater, and that the town departments that are responsible for making sure that this law is adopted will educate people that the point of this is not to suddenly say that thicker bags are better. It's that we want to return to paper. We want to be using the reusable bags, and that businesses who try and evade bans with thicker bags should be told that that's really not the intent, and we don't want that. I mean, I've mentioned it to the CVS in our community where we see these bags. Hasn't had any effect yet, but that's the message we want to send.
Okay, any other questions? Mr. Norris.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the bans that you've seen so far, or the restrictions you've seen so far, have you got any positive or negative feedback from the businesses themselves? Yeah, there's been both positive and negative. A lot of businesses, who weren't aware of the issues around the plastic bags that they're distributing, and when everybody's doing it and it costs less, they say, oh, I'll just go with that. They say, oh my gosh, I had no idea that the problems were so extensive. They weren't aware of things like storm drains. I mean, they can see a few bags in the trees, and they say, well, that's just a few. But when you're generating 1.5 million or 1.7 million per month, as in Brookline, that there's potential for so much litter there, and until those statistics are presented to them, they're not really aware of their impact. So if some of them say, oh my gosh, I had no idea, I'm happy to switch over, and the local bookstore that's very beloved in Brookline wrote a letter in support of this, and they were one of the businesses that was affected. But I have seen in other communities businesses say, no, this is a real burden, and they're oppositional. So it's not something that will meet with universal acclaim, but I think part of the problem is that I think businesses want a level playing field. So that if the message is to all the businesses, this is something bad, we're trying to get rid of it, let's all get on board. No one's going to be penalized for having to use, more expensive paper bags, because we're all going to be using paper bags. So, few businesses, it seems, want to be environmental leaders in this. I mean, there are a few. Whole Foods doesn't distribute plastic bags anymore, but that's obviously a minority. Some bag stores still use paper, particularly, smaller things, those little envelope type bags you might use for greeting cards. You might see still paper there, but it's these things are readily available from their distributors. It's just a matter of picking up the phone and saying, look, this next month they're starting, in a month or whatever, we have to switch to this traditional solution.
Okay, any other questions? Ms. Columbotus.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Richmond. This is useful for us. I know some people might be concerned that such a ban would put local businesses at a competitive disadvantage against, in comparison to businesses outside of town. Is there any evidence to show that?
Another good question.
The cost would be, passed on to the consumers, and therefore, encourage consumers to go elsewhere to shop.
Through you, Mr. President. Another good question that comes up frequently. I've seen no evidence of this. I think that people want to support their local businesses, that it's sort of like driving, 10 miles to get gas that's a penny or a nickel cheaper. It just isn't going to happen that much. And we're really talking about nickels here at most for plastic bags. And most stores are not giving away, 500,000 bags per month. If you're going to your local specialty shop, an art supply store, or a bookstore, or a hobby shop, something like that, they're not giving away enough bags so that where they're going to be at a disadvantage, they're going to say, oh no, I'm going to go to the hobby shop in West Bridgewater because they're giving away free bags. I mean, you can just sort of see it doesn't make sense kind of on the face of it. But there are some people who I say, well, I refuse to pay for bags. Somehow we have a right to them. Maybe when they are shopping out of town for some reason, they'll stock up on extra plastic bags. I mean, that's their choice. But we're hoping that, there'll be fewer of those communities to choose from as we go forward.
Anything else?
Can I add one thing? I know some municipalities have encouraged more of a market-based approach whereby stores are required to charge for a plastic bag. Do you know anything about the effect of that versus an outright ban?
Yes. So no community in Massachusetts has adopted that approach. We have 16 laws within Massachusetts. The majority across the country, again, which is in well above 120 that I'm aware of, none of them have chosen it. A few jurisdictions have, but the issue there is that you don't get a complete ban because people say, well, okay, I'll pay the money and I'll choose paper or plastic. The problem is they may not even offer paper. I mean, when I go to my, before our law went into effect in Brookline, when I went to CVS or Walgreens, they didn't have a paper bag, even if I wanted one. So, I don't have today the option I want. So charging a fee isn't suddenly going to make that paper appear that I want and that I believe is more sustainable. And I think it's demonstrably true. But it's just a weaker kind of law. And also, it turns out, since this was recently came up through Attorney General Maura Healey, a town that did pass an additional fee on single-use paper bags in addition to banning plastic bags, that towns do not have home rule authority to impose any fees of any sort. So well over half the communities in Massachusetts would not even be able to have that option. You could do it, obviously, in Bridgewater, which has a city form of government. You could do that, but the Sierra Club, for example, does not recommend that, and I think it's been proven that it's not as effective as a stronger regulation such as a ban.